All right, it's 10:15. You guys ready to go? Are you guys having fun at TC18? I think we can make noise, make noise. I mean, come on, if y'all like me, woo! This place is awesome. Well, my name is Sarah Coyle, and I work at USAA. And just 3 weeks ago, I started a new job there. I am now a lead reporting analyst in our chief design office, which I'm like super excited about because even though I'm not a designer, I'm hoping to apply it to dashboards, and that's like a dream of mine. So it's gonna be tons of fun. I wanna welcome you guys. If you're like me, TC18 is like one of my favorite places on earth. This is like going to Disney. I get very, very excited. So I want to welcome you guys, and we'll see, the clicker isn't working. So I'm gonna come back over here. Alrighty. As much fun as TC18 is and as excited as we are, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there are some dashboards out there, a lot of dashboards, that are MIA. They're missing insights and action. And I know you've all seen them. You get these dashboards, or I admittedly have probably created some, that really don't help our end users out. So what I want to talk to you about today is how you can guide your users inside of those dashboards and start to get some of those insights and actions back. So, how many of you have been here to this convention center before? Oh, good, a few people, right? But you haven't been to probably TC18 before because it's new, right? But when you came here last time, or even this time, when you guys have to find your way, are you just following the mass crowds like little lemmings, or maybe just opening doors and seeing what's behind door number 1? Probably not. There's a lot of signage out there, right? Like if we walk down the hall, you see the huge numbers like 385 to 399 is this way, or hey, here's where the bathrooms are, or here's where Data Village is. So that signage is actually referred to as wayfinding. Wayfinding is a term that was coined by Kevin Lynch in 1960 for architecture, and it's all about orienting people and animals in physical space and helping them to navigate and find their way. So I want you to keep that in your mind for a little bit, and I'm going to head on to the next slide. Can you really tell me much about what's going on here? It's kind of plain Jane, right? Maybe there's some originations and destinations. You can guess it's migration. I was nice enough to give you guys some colors and stereotype gender, but there's not much going on. So imagine if we took the idea of wayfinding and we started adding it to our dashboards, and instead of something plain Jane like this, we give them signage, we give them guidance, and we help bring them in and take some of that cognitive load off. So if you look at this one, it might be a bit hard to see at the back, but up here at the top, I tell them what this workbook is about. I tell them what this data is about. I'm making good use of my headers and not leaving them just plain old headers, right? So this is the concept and the idea that I want to introduce and talk to you about today, and how you can do this inside of Tableau. So before we go in, I'm going to introduce a couple of terms for you guys. The first one is a much broader concept. It's something that I think about often. Admittedly, I use it in the second definition, so I'm going to bring it up for you guys today. And that is the idea of building information experiences. This is what we do. This is what we love to do. But what I want to call it here is we're transforming data into something that informs, describes, persuades, entertains. We don't always have to tell a story, guys. Sometimes it's just a number is all you need. But also it's available through the 5 senses. Just imagine if you could smell data. How cool would that be? But we're here at Tableau, and we're going to use Tableau, and they haven't invented smell-o-vision yet. So we are going to go with the visual side and how we can do this inside of Tableau. And what we are going to do, people don't want to find their way, right? They want to find information. So a whole new term for you guys, Infofinding. This is what we're going to all be about, what I want you to start thinking about and adding to your dashboards. So this is all about orienting people into an information experience, allowing them to interact with it and discover and take something away. And so I am going to show you in Tableau each of these 3 things and how you can start adding this in. We've only got 30 minutes. It's going to be a lot in a little bit of time, and it's just going to be the basics. But keep this in your head and see what you can do as you go through things. And one big, huge place to start, I already said I'm in the design office. There's a reason that I'm excited to be there. I am all about design. So before you start anything, start designing. This is where you start. Yes, that's a napkin. I will grab anything that I can write on. I carry a sketchbook. And I encourage you to do the same. But design is not just about what type of chart you want to use, what colors you should use. There's actually something called design thinking that I'm learning about, human-centered design. So if you're building something big, design is not just, in our department they say art. Design is a lot more. And so one of the things that I would encourage you to do, and especially with wayfinding, think about who your audience is. What do they really want to get out of this? What is their technical abilities? What's their familiarity with the data, familiarity with Tableau? And then also, don't start with the metrics. Start with the questions. What questions do they need to answer? And then you're going to find the right metrics and the right info finding to add to your dashboards. So my question is, where's the bathroom? Guess what? There is a global sign that tells me which bathroom I should go into. So another factor of design is if you can design something that people are going to see on every single dashboard and is common, because then they don't have to think about it every time they get there. I don't have to, you know, you go into restaurants and they're like, this is the cowgirl's room. And I'm like, cowgirl. Okay, yes, I'm a cowgirl. You know, so try to think about that as we go forward. Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about is orientation. So this is all about people trying to find out what they're doing. And I'm going to swap over to Tableau. Very handy right there. And this is what you saw earlier. So I want to call out a few things that you can do. As I said, tell them what the workbook is about. Tell them where the data is sourcing from. Tell them the dates that are associated with the data. You don't always have to put it up here. You need to get some headphones. Find headphones. Oh, you don't have any? See in the back. Oh, they don't have any? Okay. Sorry, we had a headphoneless person. I'm trying to protect her. So it doesn't always have to be this prominent up at the top. Sometimes I just put information in the footers. I say this was my source for my data, but give them something so they know what they were looking at. One time I created a dynamic header where it picked the dates for start and end dates on a parameter, and it showed those in the header. So I just created a workbook with a dynamic text box. And then what I also did is if they picked like January 2018 to today, I changed it to YTD so they knew it was year to date. So wherever you can take that cognitive load off and help guide them, you want to do that. Another thing here, I already kind of talked about it, you've probably already done this. Make your headers more informative. Don't just make them dynamic. This is migration data. Well, Haiti, howdy doody, I could have figured that out. So, like in here, it's within the same areas about the same. So I'm kind of answering a question that they might have about the data. You can also make these dynamic, put some of your dimensions in there. As they change filters, etc., they can change different things. So keep that in mind. The other thing is, how many times do people not know what the data means? They have no idea what possible values are. They don't know what the definitions are. So add those in. On net migration over here, I just defined what net migration is so that people know, and if there's a calculation, I put it in. Now, sometimes you don't want to put it out in the open, so I've seen people build wiki pages where they can go out and learn all about a dashboard. I've also seen where people add a glossary to their visualization on another tab and kind of do it that way. One of the things that I was recently playing around with is, who is not excited about Vision Tooltip? I mean, that was like Christmas, right? Or whatever holiday you celebrate. So one of the things that I did is I created a table that had my terms and definitions, and then I created visualization, and then I just created another workbook that says hover for the definitions, and they don't pop up. You lose your connection. There we go. That was exciting, wasn't it? Okay, so basically you can hover over that text, and I promise you, you will see some definitions. That was fun. When it's live, people, you get it very excited. Here it is right here. So when you hover, you can see the definitions right there and give them information. So find ways that you can take that load off so they don't have to figure out what they're looking at. You kind of help them figure it out themselves. All right, So the next part, past orientation, is, and just a quick note, the presentation will be available afterwards, and I've added slides since you won't be able to access the actual talk that have like a few visuals and little marks. So the next part is interaction. So we're all used to filters, parameters, somebody doing something that changes the viz. You can also change the viz based on who's logged in. So keep that in mind as well. I just have one simple example, but you can actually pull who is logged in to a Tableau workbook. And imagine if you had like an HR database or something and you can find out what team they're on and automatically filter the view to them. Or add something in the tooltip that tells them more about their team. So think of ways that you can really help that user get to where they want to be faster and add those info finding pieces in. So we're gonna switch back over here. So I have two workbooks. One is about migration and one is about water and sanitation. So if we look back over here on my intro page, this is where it pulls who's logged in. Sometimes it actually shows the name, but this is just a worksheet that I created where I pulled the name of the person logged in and I was welcoming them to the dashboard. So this is also something else to keep in mind when you're designing dashboards. If you can engage the user, bring them in, make them want to play with what you've developed. So imagine if you log in, don't you love it on websites and stuff? Sarah, welcome to Amazon, or whatever it is, you know? So think about how you can do those things. Now filters, I'm sure all of y'all, unless you're very, very new, have played with filters. So I'm not going to grave detail about filters, but I will just cover them briefly. These are just basic filters where you can select, hey, I want to see people that move to a new region. What I want to call out here on your filters is, if you'll notice, I didn't just say what that field was. I put a question on my filter. I'm trying again to invite them, say, what are you looking for? What do you want to see? What major area? So change your filter headers and you can make them a little bit more informative. Or I'm going to tell you, a lot of companies where they've lived in Excel, they don't know a filter from Shinola. So you have to help them understand what a filter is. And that's why I said earlier, knowing your audience, if they're not very technical, you may have to have a session where you train them on filters, on parameters, something like this. And the other thing is, don't always leave the data that's inside of the filter. I changed it to move to a new region. I didn't say migration, I didn't say destination. So you can change the words that you're using to make it informative for your users. Now, one way that I like to use filters, we're gonna hop over to my wash database over here, is you can see on this one what I've done is I have filters and I have the exact same visualizations, but what I've done is so that you can compare two countries. I've done this in some of my work stuff as well. And then down here, I don't know where Afghanistan is, I'll admit, I'm not so good with this geography thing. And so to help my users, I put in a map and I was like, hey, where is Afghanistan if you want to compare it? And then in my tooltip, I added some additional information to even take it further, which I'll talk about in just a minute. So this is another way to not just use filters for filtering your data, but so that they can compare two different things and maybe get some answers and see how drinking water differs between two countries, or see other things. So those are some ways that users can either interact with or you can allow them to interact. So I'm going to swap back real quick. And again, I've got these in there for you so that you can have some ideas. And the last piece is discovery. This is the fun part. Because you've helped them with the info finding, they know what they're looking at, they maybe have already gotten some answers, they can engage, they can play, they can start taking stuff away. They can start answering their own questions, or potentially you've answered a few of them for them. So let's take a look at some ways you can do discovery. All right, we're back over here. So I'm gonna go back to this database, this Tableau workbook over here. And this one is actually my genders sheet. As I had mentioned earlier, use your headers. When I change from male to female, you'll notice that my header changes to males. And so I'm just letting them know this is what you filtered for, especially if you have a lot of filters. Somehow let them know what they're looking at because they can get lost. The one thing that I wanted to call out here, I don't know, and with all the amazing stuff that they're coming out with in Tableau, maybe this is easier now, but I wanted to sort on origination and destination. And so here, I actually used a combined field to combine my origination and destination and be able to sort to say which one had the highest percentage of people moving from one place to another. The other thing that I want to call out, it's a design thing. It might be hard to see, but I use the greater than sign there to indicate movement, because I'm trying to say that they're moving from this origination point to this destination point. They may not even notice that. They may not even care. But if they look at that, they can kind of see it. Now, color can be used for wayfinding. You have to be careful, because some people are colorblind, so hopefully you can use a colorblind palette. But I left my colors here because when I was going through my content review, they were like, those colors are awful, what are you talking about? And I was trying to show, and I thought I was being clear, that hey, let me see, it's on the female one that you can really see it. The color indicates so that you can easily see, hey, Southern Asia here and Southern Asia here, which means there's more people originating from Southern Asia. But with all those colors, you can't tell that. That's really ugly. So this is another thing. Take time to test your stuff, not just yourself, but test your stuff also with other people looking at it. And I will channel storytelling with data right here. If you haven't read her book, I can't say it, Knopfler, her book is amazing. Turn everything to gray and then color just what you want to show. And that would have worked a lot better here. But I just want to call it out because you can use color, but you have to be careful. Well, with all of this, you really do. Okay, one of my huge things with discovery, if you take nothing else away, do not leave your tooltips at default. I think that tooltips are one of the most valuable resources that we have inside of Tableau. I've used other visualization tools where you couldn't change them. It was so frustrating. And so you can use them to your advantage. What I want to show you is net migration as a calculation. And so here, I actually put the calculation in my tooltips. I put the two numbers that were used to get to the net migration point. So find ways to add data to your tooltip that's either additional data or further explains the data that they're looking at. Again, know your audience. You may not be used to tooltips. You may have to train them. The other thing that you can do inside of tooltips now, like I said earlier, and we should all be excited about, is the viz in tooltip. Use these to your advantage. I've used them for definitions. I've also used them here to show the top 10 countries that people are migrating to from Russia. You'll notice also when you do this type of thing, I don't know that, okay, I can guess that's Russia. I know that part of geography, but I put the name of the country in my tooltip. So if you guys haven't done this before, I will just show you very, very, very quickly because we don't have a lot of time. And there are some sessions on this that are really good, but when you go into your tooltip, this is where you can add data elements, and also now under the insert, you can add different sheets. And you can actually add more than one. You can play with the filters. At first I thought, oh, all you do is add a graph. Oh no, there's amazing things you can do. I went to a Viz in Tooltip session yesterday, totally astounding what these people were doing. So if that one's available, or if you can see it after, highly, highly recommend it. The last thing that I want to show you that I've done before is, if it comes up, I had the idea to randomly generate a fact that would change on a regular basis. And so this gives the people information they're not going to find in my data on this wash data, so it's a did you know section. So all I did was I created a table, and I have this on something I'm going to hand out to you guys, with an ID and a fact. And then I created a calculation to randomly generate a number between 1 and 19, which is how many facts I had. And then I dragged the fact onto a worksheet. And then in my filters, I filtered where the ID is equal to the randomly generated number. And so every day that randomly generated number changes, and they get a new fact, and they learn something new that they never could have learned about the data. So think about this info finding. We're trying to find those insights and actions. Help your users find those insights and actions. And one of the amazing ways that you can do this, okay, I've got 10 minutes. Tell them more. There are some amazing tools out there that can help you guys tell them even more than what you can do inside of Tableau. I had an exciting time working on a hackathon where the people were going to generate headlines based on the data. I was like, okay, Smarty McSmarts, I'm just here to help with the visuals. You guys figure that out. But what we discovered was something called narrative science. Has anybody heard of narrative science? Awesome, right? Oh, hello. So it's natural language generation. Have you guys heard of that? Yes, okay, good, I'm seeing some nods. So at the time, all we had was narrative science, and one of our coders would send data into narrative science and get these amazing like paragraphs and bullets of information back. We had to incorporate them into our Tableau dashboard we put them on a web page, and then we had that web page inside of our Tableau dashboard. So it worked, but it was kind of clunky, and sometimes clunky, not narrative science or Tableau, but just in the fact that we had to send a different query to narrative science, different query over. So then I got really lucky, and I don't know about y'all, but extensions are gonna be so much fun. Narrative science has an extension, Narratives for Tableau. You can start using it in 2018.2, I believe. I got to pilot it. I can't show you USAA data. So I use Superstore. You can't really see. It's office supplies, furniture, technology. Wow, so exciting, a line graph, right? Oh my goodness, wow. Well, with extensions, all I did was within just a few minutes, and I didn't play with it a lot. This is just to show you how powerful it is. I drug in the extension, and all of this text was generated for me off of this chart. And this isn't even all of it. I spliced it to fit it on the slide. So you've got things in here like office supplies increased over 3 consecutive periods from 2016 Q1 to Q4. Okay, I could have gotten there, but imagine if we gave this to our users. You want to talk about Infofinding? You want to talk about giving insights? You're going to get a lot of insight from this. So I encourage you to explore natural language generation. Narrative Science is here. They've got a booth. I know there's also a lot of talks going on about natural language. There's natural language processing, which we've seen, generation. So go explore. You can do amazing things. Now, I want to leave you with some inspiration. This is the other thing that I encourage you to do. Look around you. I once gave a practice on presentation on best practices in visualization. One of the things that I said was observe. Observation. I mean, when you look at the parking garage, the other day I looked at it, and the way the windows were orientated and shaped, I could use that for a visualization I was working on. Sounds crazy, but just look at the world around you. There's also a lot of charts and graphs out there. So this is my energy company. You can see my energy bill. If you want to help me pay for it, you're more than welcome to. But they actually have a lot of cool charts out there. One of the things that caught my attention is this one that's showing how I compared to my neighbors. And I'm like, well, are you talking about Aaron next door? Who are you talking about? And so you can actually click on the who are my neighbors, and you get information about your neighbors. So this is where I said using tooltips. You could do something like this, going out to another page. The other cool part on this one is tell me more about your home, and they will adjust who your neighbors are and what the information is. I'm thinking, I haven't tried it yet, extensions, we could do something like this, or linking to an internal web page. You might be able to collect new data and alter what the people are seeing. I already mentioned my love of Fitbit. If you don't have a Fitbit, their app and dashboards are so much fun. I think that's the only thing I care about. I'm not even paying attention to my steps. But one thing I pay attention to is my sleep. I don't get a lot of sleep, so I don't know how I got 16 hours here. I think I was sick. I normally get 6. But this right here was actually my inspiration for the random number generation, because what they do is they actually pull my information and then they tell me how average users are, or they tell me what other people are doing, so that I can see, and I can see, oh, you know what? They're waking up an hour earlier. Why am I, waking up at the time that I'm waking up? So talk about insight in action right here. I can also interact with it and say if I like it or not, which probably tells them whether or not to use it. This one right here is actually saying that, hey, you're going to bed at a late time. Do you need to set a reminder and have a bedtime reminder? Well, we can incorporate this stuff into Tableau. So the reason why I bring this up is pay attention to these charts around you and think of how you can replicate some of this stuff. This is where I think extensions or something might work. Again, I haven't played with it, but look at things like this because it's got a nice chart. It tells you if you beat your goal. It's got extra information. Now, the big thing that we're trying to do here is insights and actions. So I actually was at my doctor's checkup, and I said, I'm not getting any sleep. And she's like, really? I was like, no, I'm really not. and I pulled up my Fitbit app, and I brought up the main page has this data here, which is every single day how many hours I'm getting. So this is like not good right here at all. This is I woke up at like 2 in the morning and couldn't sleep for an hour. And so we started to see my patterns that I'm getting on average like 6 hours. And so I was taking action right there with the data. I was able to go back in time and see when it started and try to figure out why I wasn't getting any sleep. You can build stuff like this inside of Tableau. And then your people will start taking action. And there's a lot of information here for that info finding that will help me actually discover things because they're guiding me through how each of my days are doing. Or right here I get a star. Woo! I slept 7 hours. It was amazing. And so there's things throughout the Fitbit app that they show and that they tell. Like they give details on how deep your sleep is. So think about how you can add these things into your dashboards to help your users find information and get insight. Last one that I'll show you, and this is again, merging data together. Sometimes you might have additional data or even industry data that you can use. I think it's on this one over here. It compares to other women my age, or yeah, ranges for women your age. So this is on Sunday, how much sleep I get compared to other women. I'm not doing so good in some cases. So look at the things around you, observe them, and see how they're doing info finding. What are they doing to orient the user's interaction and discovery? And I encourage you to get out there and see what you can do so that you can find those insights and actions by adding info finding to your dashboards. If you can't tell, I am beyond passionate about all this stuff. I'm like the crazy data lady. I'm all about data transformation, data experiences, transformation experiences, and information experiences. So my gift to you, if you want one, please take one, you can copy it. I have a few notes on info finding, and then I have a lot of resources that I like, podcasts, web pages, Twitter feeds, etc. So you're welcome to take one of those because I want you to get out there. I want you to really have fun with your data, see what Tableau can do, push the limits, add info finding in, get your users engaged, and help them to take something away because then they're going to want more. And you're going to be so busy and it's going to be so much fun. So I thank you guys a lot. If you want to catch me, if you see me during conference, if you want to talk more, you can tell I'm game. So you guys have an awesome 2018.